Yai dai 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 yai da dai da da dai yai dai 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 yai da dai da da dai 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 yai da dai 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 yai da dai 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 da da dai da da dai da dai 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 yai da dai da da dai yai da dai da da dai yai da dai da dai 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 yai dai da da dai yai da dai da dai 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 yai dai da da dai yai da da dai yai da da dai yai dai 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 yai da dai da da dai yai dai 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 yai da dai da da dai 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 yai da dai 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 yai da dai 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 da da dai da da dai da dai 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 yai da dai da da dai yai da dai da da dai. Shiru l'Adonai kol haaretz shiru l'Adonai shir chadash shiru l'Adonai kol haaretz shiru l'Adonai shir chadash. Sing unto God all the earth a new song. I will sing unto God a new song. Sing unto God and we'll all sing along. All the earth a new song unto God. Shiru l'Adonai kol haaretz shiru l'Adonai shir chadash shiru l'Adonai kol haaretz shiru shiru l'Adonai shir chadash. It is good to be with all of you tonight as we sing a new song to God about the wonders of life and the joys that come with life. But sometimes that's hard to do. It's hard to do on International Holocaust Remembrance Day today. It's hard to do when International Holocaust Remembrance Day is also the same day that there's a terrorist attack in Israel that killed 7 and injured 3. And it's hard to do when sitting on a month that has seen so many mass shootings that we're about to break a record, if not have done so already. It is hard to sing to God about the joys of creation when we as a society are so good at ending that creation. May our worship here this evening help inspire sacred living. May it open our hearts to one another and help create a society that sees the ending of all this baseless hatred. Holy One of blessing, grant us the will to stand firm in the face of evil and hostility, not to be silent or afraid, to work diligently and faithfully to banish wickedness from the earth. Holy One of blessing, grant us the courage and resolve to speak when there is hatred, to act when there is confusion, to join with others in building a world of safety, understanding, and acceptance. That is our prayer to you this evening. May it be your will. Amen.
Shabbat Shalom. My name is Ina Horn, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to Anshe Emeth Memorial Temple. It's great to be together, to welcome in Shabbat together, to gather strength as a community, and to take a moment to pause and notice the important things in our lives. Now let us feel the warmth of Shabbat as we invite Matana Horowitz to the Bima to light the Shabbat candles and lead us in the blessings that may be found on pages 2 and 3 in your prayer books. Shabbat Shalom.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all those who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
On the side.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu, lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
We continue on pages 20 and 21 for Lechadodi.
Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad, Hishmianu el hamyuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, l'shem u'tiferet v'litehila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, Ki mekor ha'beracha, Merosh mikerem nesucha, Sof ma'aseh b'machshava techila. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Mikdash melech ir melucha, kumitzei mitoch hafecha, Rav lach shevet be'emek habacha, Vehu yachamol alayich hemla. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Hitnari me'afakumi, Lifshei bigdei tifartecha ami, על יד בן ישי בית הלחמי, קרבה אל נפשי גאלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, 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 שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לא תבושי ולא תקלמי, מה תשתוכחי ומה תמי בך יכסו. אני עמי ונבנתה עיר עתילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. והיו למשי שושייך ורחקו, כל מבלייך יסיס עלייך אלוהייך, כמשוש חתן על כלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. ימין ושמאל תפרוצי בית אדוני, תריצי על יד איש בן פרצי ונשמחה ונגילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה,
Rise,
פני
neither body or spirit.
שבת נקבלה. בואי ושלום, עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, פני שבת נקבלה.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
We continue on page 26 with Chatzi Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברך חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי כל בית ישראל, בעגלה בעגלה ובזמן קריב אמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעלמי עלמיה. יתברך, יתברך וישתבח ויפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל, שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמא ויאמרו Amen.
We rise in either body or spirit for the Baruch Hu on page 28.
Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Yai da 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 da. Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, HaMevorach leolam vaed. HaMevorach, HaMevorach leolam vaed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bivaro mariv aravim b'chokma poteach sha'arim uvitfuna mishane itim umachalif et hazmanim umisader et hakochavim b'mishmeroteim barakia kirtsono borei yom v'layla golel or mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or umavir yom umevi layla umavdil ben yom uben layla Adonai tzvaot shemo El chai v'kayam tamid imloch aleinu leolam vaed Baruch atah Adonai Hamariv Aravim.
אהבת עולם בית ישראל עמך אהבת תורה ומצוות חוקים ומשפטים אותנו למדת אהבת עולם בית ישראל עמך אהבת תורה ומצוות חוקים ומשפטים אותנו למדת על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו ובקומנו נשיח בחוקיך אהבת עולם בית ישראל עמך אהבת תורה ומצוות חוקים ומשפטים אותנו למדת ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד כי הם חיינו באורך ימינו ובהם נגן יומם ולילה אהבת עולם בית ישראל עמך אהבת תורה ומצוות חוקים ומשפטים אותנו למדת אותנו למדת אותנו למדת שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד 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 שם כבוד מלכותו, לעולם ועד. ברוך שם כבוד מלכותו, לעולם ועד. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד.
Please be seated.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם, amen.
We read responsively from the bottom of page 39. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea.
Yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai 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 dai. Yai dai 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 dai. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai. Mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai. Mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh. Nora tehilot osei fele. Nora tehilot osei fele. Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Malchutecha ra'u banecha, bokei yam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam. Ze Elianu ve'amru, ze Elianu ve'amru, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש. נורא
Tehilot.
עושה, נורא
Tehilot.
עושה פלא, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד.
We read together from the top of page 43. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up, waiting to do your will. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukkot shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim.
Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu lechayim. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu lechayim. Spread the shelter of your peace over us. Guide us in wisdom, compassion, and trust. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu lechayim. Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu lechayim. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu lechayim, lechayim, lechayim. Yismechu v'malachutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, v'korei oneg Shabbat. Yismechu v'malachutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, v'korei oneg Shabbat. Am mekadeshei, mekadeshei shevi Shabbat. Kulam yispe'u bit'angu mituvecha Shabbat. Yismechu v'malachutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, v'korei oneg Shabbat. Yismechu v'malachutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, v'korei oneg Shabbat. Veha shvi, ratzita bo v'kidashto Shabbat. חמדת ימים אותו קראת שבת ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת זכר זכר למעשה וראשית שבת זכר זכר למעשה וראשית שבת ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת ישמחו במלכותך שומרי 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 שבת וקורא עונג שבת. אדוני שפתי תפתח ופי אגיד תהילתך 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 ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו אלוהי אברהם אלוהי יצחק ואלוהי יעקב אלוהי שרה אלוהי רבקה אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומר חסדים טובים וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים. צומק נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו פלישי עפר. מי כמוך בעל גאולה ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
We continue now with silent prayer through page 63, adding the words and meditations of our hearts. After you are concluded, you may be seated.
עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל יושבי תבל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל יושבי תבל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu. Ve'imru, Amen.
January is almost over, but it isn't there yet. And in the short amount of time that we have been in 2023, there have already been over 40 mass shootings. And we are well aware, or well ahead, of eclipsing all previous records on the calendar. And this is not a record that should be beat. There have been plenty of shootings for me to raise my voice about that have already occurred this year and last. Why now? Why from the pulpit? Well, there is something out there that is unnerving me more than the previous shootings. And that's the lack of outrage, the lack of condemnation that I'm seeing around us. Sure, the news is reporting it, but as a whole, unless I'm not plugged into the right media sources, it seems to be falling on deaf ears. I'm not even hearing people say thoughts and prayers anymore, but just dead silence. Playing on the screen now, for the duration of my sermon, is a list of all the mass shootings that have been recorded in this country since the 1920s. You'll notice two things. The first is, within two sentences, we've left the 1920s. But you'll notice the number of shootings for a decade will soon be replaced with the number of shootings in a year. And then you'll notice the shootings in a year will start getting longer and longer. As you watch the screen, I want you to look for shootings that you recall being ones that felt like turning points for you, ones that are seared into your mind when you thought this is the last straw and society will change. Then realize that it had no effect whatsoever. Remember the indignation, the anger, the burning desire to get something done, and then ask yourself, where was the line that we as a society drew? What was the year when we gave up any hope of being able to solve this? When did our hearts dry up and become hard? Because as a whole, society's heart has been hardened. We hear that phrase for the first time this week in our Torah portion, Parashat Bo, where God says, Kibadati libo, for I, Adonai, have hardened his, Pharaoh's, heart. Pharaoh, on the verge of letting the Israelites go, has had his heart hardened by God, which forces another set of plagues to occur. The rabbis speculate tremendously on why God did this. Was it to make Pharaoh an even opponent? Was it because the plagues needed to happen so that God's might could be on display in all its glory on the world stage? Hear me, that I am God, and fear me. Ultimately, this hardening of hearts leads Moses to ask on behalf of God, how long will you refuse to humble yourself before me? Now, we can talk theology about hardening the heart of Pharaoh and God's role in it all you want tonight. And we can talk about it over and over again and run in circles, but it would just take away from a simple truth. Things happen, and sometimes we act against our own self-interest. There are so many things that happen in this world that are random, and we just call them an act of God, even though God had nothing to do with them. We had a miserable rain Wednesday night, and through an act of God, our roof leaked in the worst leak I have seen in, ever. And it won't be fixed for weeks. Was that leak actually God sending us a message by way of plague? No. By the way, our Buildings and Grounds Committee do view the roof as a plague, an eternal plague. But it wasn't God that did it. Why does this text say that God hardened Pharaoh's heart? Personally, my midrash, my interpretation, is that God did no such thing. But the authors of the text couldn't wrap their minds around how Pharaoh could have been so stubborn in the face of God's power. I would be good with seeing a staff turn into a snake. I'd see that happen. It would eat the other snakes. I'm good. The slaves can get on the next caravan after Goshen. You're free to go. But not for this Pharaoh. So the plagues went on. How on earth could anyone not give in to that? God must have intervened. God must have, kibadati libo, hardened his heart. As outsiders, we look at what's happening within Egypt and we attribute God to Pharaoh's stubbornness, because what else could explain a country working against its own self-interest in such an obvious way? Look at that plague. Look at the pain. Look at the death. Look at the misery. Why would they do that and ignore their own self-interest? That, by the way, is how other nations look to us when mass shootings occur constantly, and we do nothing to try and temper them. There is no rational explanation as to why our hearts have been hardened to such catastrophe other than the unexplainable. What caused us to become so closed off to a possible answer? The truth is, very rarely do we actively choose to flip a switch and turn off emotions. Something always happens, and as a defense mechanism, we try to protect ourselves. It's like each and every one of those shootings going by on the screen gives our heart another layer of calluses until we can't feel them anymore. We have resigned ourselves to the idea that nothing can be done, that it's too difficult to think about, that there are too many guns already. It's too complicated to solve. Why bother? We can't stop it. There are so many different factors that are part of what's going on, and I've heard from the most liberal to the most conservative what they believe the causes are. What I don't want to do tonight is engage in a debate about Second Amendment rights. I'm not going to advocate the logistics behind taking away America's guns. First, I don't believe that it's practical or achievable, but I also believe that if we focus on that and that alone, we miss the very real points about how we are ignoring a mental health crisis in America, or how we're dealing a rage crisis or an anger crisis. I cannot, however, escape the inescapable fact that studies have consistently found that places with more guns have more violent deaths, that the more guns there are in an area, the higher the local suicide rates are, and that, as David Hemingway, who was the director of the Harvard Injury Control Research Center, stated, generally, if you live in a civilized society, more guns mean more death, and there is no evidence that having more guns reduces crime. None at all. But that's not my point tonight. When we wrestle with what to say, considering these shootings, I look to the wisdom of our sages, who had mixed emotions when grappling with weapons. Our sages didn't live in a world that contained guns. The very notion that there could be a device out there like an AR-15 would have been mind-boggling for them. Therefore, none of the writings would ever mention anything that could snuff out human life with either that large a scale or with that amount of ease. What they do write about were the equivalents of their day and how we should regulate weapons. We don't actually see a reference of weapons in the Torah until we come across Lamech, Adam and Eve's great-grandson and father of Noah. It's noted in the Torah that Lamech learned how to forge weapons. With this mention that weapons were being brought into the world, Ramban extrapolates a midrash that states that as Lamech prepared to forge swords, his wives began to protest because they were afraid. They were afraid because now that we would have the skills to make swords, death would readily enter the world. Within Ramban's midrash, Lamech responded to his wives, reminding them that murder existed well before he started creating swords. To turn a modern phrase, swords don't kill people, people kill people. However, in our Torah, Lamech boasts that I have killed a man for wounding me, a young man for striking me. If Cain's revenge is sevenfold, then mine is 77-fold. For me, this teaches us that if we focus only on guns and not the anger and the hatred and the vitriol that lends a shooter to action, then nothing will change. Just the means of which someone who intends to do harm will do harm. The rabbis were aware of the dangers of swords and daggers, which is why they made the sale of weapons heavily regulated. In fact, according to Avodah Zarah, one could only sell weapons to a friendly neighbor or to an allied nation, and it was explicitly written that one could not sell to someone who has committed murder or was a cowardly thief. Why one couldn't sell to a murderer should be clear, but why to a coward? They teach that you can't sell a sword to a coward because you can't predict what his behavior might be when he is in a stressful or panic-stricken situation. In other words, the rabbis understood that a sword in the right hands would cause no harm and could be useful and a necessary tool. However, in the wrong hands, it could be disastrous. I imagine sages probably wouldn't advocate for the removal of guns, but would advocate for strict policies that would ensure only the right people could obtain them, which is something we are failing miserably at doing. In addition, we often, far too often, get focused on guns. Guns are an easy, inanimate thing for us to focus on. They are the problem. They are the cause. Let's just get rid of them and everything will be fine. But to me, that's putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable. Instead, I think we need to focus on a different question of why so many people are wanting to hurt others. What can we do to help the hurt and the pain? What are we doing that is preventing individuals from learning lessons about how to properly treat others? What is causing so much rage in society? There seems to be no area of life, perhaps except for within these walls, but there seems to be no area of life where anger doesn't flow on tap towards others. From how we interact as drivers in cars, to how people treat workers in the customer service industry, as you can tell by all those Karen videos online, to how we process pain, we seem to have no problem lashing out at anyone who looks at us sideways. Our hearts have become made of stone, and we seem to have no problem hurting others. How long will we refuse to humble ourselves and start caring for one another, the stranger and the neighbor alike? How many more entries will it take until we start working in society's self-interest rather than against it? At what time will we no longer study war anymore and start working in harmony to care for one another?
Yisagoy el goy cherev lo yilmedu od milchama lo yisagoy el goy cherev lo yilmedu od milchama lo yisagoy el goy cherev lo yilmedu od milchama lo yisagoy el goy cherev lo yilmedu od milchama. Nation shall not lift up their swords, they shall not learn the ways of war. Nation shall not lift up their swords, they shall not learn the ways of war. Every wind beneath the vine and fig tree, every soul that's singing for humanity, everyone must lay down their swords. Every town that's struck down by a tragedy, every branch that's broken off a family tree, everyone must lay down their swords. Every dreamer dreaming of a better day, every leader preaching there's a better way, everyone must lay down their swords. Every conscious call for civility, every hero exhibiting humility, everyone must lay down their swords. Lo yisagoy el goy cherev, lo yilmedu od milchama. Lo yisagoy el goy cherev, lo yilmedu od milchama. Nation shall not lift up their swords, they shall not learn the ways of war. Nation shall not lift up their swords, they shall not learn the ways of war. Everyone beneath the vine and fig tree, every soul that's singing for humanity, everyone must lay down their swords. Every town that's struck down by a tragedy, every branch that's broken off a family tree, everyone must lay down their swords. Every dreamer's dreaming of a better day, every leader preaching there's a better way, everyone must lay down their swords. Every conscious calling civility, every hero exhibiting humility, everyone must lay down their sword. Lord, Lord. Lo, 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 lo.
Shabbat Shalom once again. Just a few announcements before we conclude our service. We have a full weekend and week ahead of us. This Saturday it's not 8 p.m., is it? It's at 6 p.m., right?
Yeah,
The
6
cabaret
p.m.
night.
6
Okay,
p.m.
at 6 p.m.
Dinner is at 6.
Dinner is
Yeah.
at 6. What's in there? I don't have a trifold brochure in front of me, but dinner is at 6. Cabaret is at 7. If you're, yeah, it's correct here. So follow what's in here, not on my sheet. Dinner is at 6. Cabaret is at 7. I'm thrilled that we're back in person, having cabaret night again. The leaky roof won't stop us. We'll be fine. It's a great way to celebrate community together, and a long time coming since COVID struck. So it's good to be together again. Sunday morning at 10:30 is our Israel trip orientation. If you've signed up for the Israel trip, you should have gotten an email letting you know that it's happening. It's not going to be in the Beit Midrash anymore. That's closed off. It's going to be in, I think, the amphitheater. But if you are still thinking about joining us for our trip to Israel and you haven't registered yet, come to it anyway. We've got, I believe, close to 60 people already registered for the trip. We have some room left on the first-timers bus and some room left on the returners bus. If you haven't made up your mind yet, come to the orientation and you'll make up your mind by the end of it. Next Tuesday at 7 o'clock, we're meeting at the Church of Latter-day Saints in East Brunswick for a session called Facts and Myths, Jews and Mormons. Please come and join us as we have a conversation about our two different faiths, similarities and differences, and histories and how they have worked or haven't worked together. That's sponsored through AJC and should be a really good program. Lastly, next Friday night is our next Shabbat dinner that follows services with junior choir singing. Please, please, please RSVP by February 1st. Yes, there's always room for one more, but having a pretty close to accurate count prevents Dr. Joe and Team Bateavon from cooking an extra 500 dinners. So if you could register, that kind of helps us keep them in check. At the conclusion of our service, we will be joining in Lippman Hall for Kiddush and Motzi and the opportunity to greet one another and say Shabbat Shalom and enjoy each other's company. On this Shabbat Eve, as we join together as one congregation to celebrate creation and the joy of life and living, we turn our thoughts to those in our community for whom life has become precarious because of health or hospitalization. O God of healing, in our hearts we name those who are facing illness and pain. We join our prayers together with the prayers of those who love them. Give them renewed comfort and courage. Strengthen in them the healing powers you place within us all, and guide the hands and hearts of those who are entrusted with their care. May the knowledge of your love and ours give added hope to them and their families, and may they find even greater strength because our prayers are linked to theirs. In particular, we think of the victims whose lives hang in the balance over the recent violent attacks in the Middle East. Mishaberach avotenu v'imotenu hu yevarechet ha-cholim, ufuat ha-nefesh ufuat ha-guf, hashta'a b'ga'alav zman kariv v'nomar, Amen. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless those in need of healing. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and spirit, as together we say, Amen.
Mishaberach לאבותינו, מקור הברכה לאמותינו. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu, mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
We continue on page 282 as we rise, neither body or spirit, for Elenu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונה, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Page 287. May we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding. Loved each of us for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech, and may we never lift up our hand but to conquer fear and doubt and despair. Rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to go forth over all the lands between the seas, and light up the universe with the joy of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace.
ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד ושמו אחד ושמו אחד.
We have lived in numberless towns and villages, and too many of them we have endured cruel suffering. Some we have forgotten, others are sealed in our memory, a wound that does not heal. 100 generations of victims and martyrs, still their blood cries out from the earth. And so many at Dachau, at Buchenwald, at Babi Yar. What can we say? What can we do? How bear the unbearable or accept what life has brought our people? All who are born must die, but how shall we compare the slow passage of time with the callous slaughter of the innocent, cut off before their time? They lived with faith, not all but many, and surely many died with faith in God and life and the goodness that even flames cannot destroy. May we find a way to the strength of that faith, that trust, that sure sense that life and soul endure beyond this body's death. They have left their lives to us. Let a million prayers rise whenever Jews worship. Let a million candles glow against the darkness of these unfinished lives. And with their lives, we also remember those whom death has recently taken from us, those whose families are observing the Shloshim. We remember Sally Shore, wife of Melvin of blessed memory, sister of Milton and Ruth, mother of Kenneth and Liv, Anne and Myron and Howard. And we remember Shelley Weissman, wife of Donald of blessed memory, sister of Hilly and Sue of blessed memory, aunt of Ellen, Eddie, and Joni. And on this Shabbat, we also recall those dear ones who died at this season in years past, whose names we record with love in our service booklet this evening. Their names are forever bound to our hearts and are permanently inscribed throughout our building. And if you're joining us tonight online to say Kaddish for a loved one, please say their names aloud at home or type their names into the chat so that we can lift up the names of your loved ones together with you. And if you're here in person to say Kaddish for a loved one, please say their names as I look out to you. Zichronam livracha. May all their names and memories only be for a blessing. First, I want to invite all the mourners, if able, to rise for Kaddish Yatom. And then, in memory of the 7 Israelis who were killed earlier today outside of a synagogue, whose names have yet to be released, we rise together for Kaddish, as well as the memory of those taken during the Holocaust, of every race, nation, and creed. We continue with Kaddish Yatom Mourner's Kaddish on page 294. Ikadal v'ikadash shemei rabbah, v'alma divrach hirutei v'amlik malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon, v'chayed dekol beit Yisrael, Ba'galav izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabba mivrach leolam olomei almaya. Yitbarach v'ishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudesha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechamata. Damiran b'yalma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya. V'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. May the source of peace bestow peace to all who mourn. May we be a source of comfort to all who are bereaved, as we say, amen.
Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imeru. We end off our service tonight with the singing of Adon Olam, found on page 321 in your Sidurim, as we all rise. Adon olam asher malach, haydi 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 hay, beterem kol yetzir nivrach, haydi 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 hay, li'nasa bechefso kol, haydi 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 hay, azay melech shemo nikra, haydi 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 hay. ואחרי ככלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה אדון עולם אשר מלך היידי 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 היי בטרם כל יציר נברא היידי 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 היי להתנסה בחפצו הכל היידי 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 היי אזי מלך שמו נקרא היידי 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 היי והוא אחד ואין שני להמשיל לו להכבירה בלי ראשית בלי תכלית בלא העוז והמשרה היידי 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 אדון עולם אשר מלך היידי 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 היי בטרם כל יציר נברא היידי 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 היי להתנסה בחפצו כל היידי 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 היי אזי מלך שמו נקרא היידי 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 היי והוא אלי וחי גואלי וצור חבלי מעת צרה והוא ניסי ומנוס לי מנת כוסי ביום אקרא אדון עולם אשר מלך היידי 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 היי בטרם כל יציר נברא היידי 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 היי להתנסה בחפצו כל היידי 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 היי אזי מלך שמו נקרא היידי 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 היי בידו אבגיד רוחי בעת אישן ועירה ואם רוחי גוויעתי אדוני לי ולא יירא אדון עולם אשר מלך היידי 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 היי בטרם כל יציר נברא היידי 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 היי להתנסה בחפצו כל היידי 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 היי אזי מלך שמו נקרא היידי 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 היי.
Don't stop after beating the swords into plowshares. Don't stop. Go on beating and making them into musical instruments. Whoever wants to make war again will have to turn them into plowshares first. Lo yisagoy el goy cherev, lo yamadu od milchama. Amen. And Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Nicely done, sir.